Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to another fun-packed Saturday of college football. I'm Dave Gloeckner. This is Joel Schreck, and we are the CFB DFS Masterminds brought to you by Win Daily Sports and Underdog Fantasy. We're going to get into the whole Week 12 slate here, upcoming after the intro. All right, Joe, welcome back, man. Another big Saturday. Not a lot of big games, I'll say, but a lot of good DFS games. So it's a weird week, but I'm really interested in this slate because you don't have any like real stinkers to throw out. I mean, there's maybe one, but other than that, everything's packed between 51 and 59 points in game total. So it's a lot to choose from.
Which makes today's slate really interesting because there's not going to be over-condensed ownership to like two games where everyone's flocking to. There's going to be some ownership in some places we can talk to, but there's some spots where I think the ownership's wrong. Like, I wouldn't even play those guys had they not been high-owned. So I think there's definitely good spots to find leverage, because there's so many games that are in similar totals. You can find a game that maybe some people aren't on and kind of have leverage if that game goes over. So from a DFS perspective, it should be a lot of fun breaking today down.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, last week we had some good plays, good hits. Colorado, Texas Tech was a great game to be in. Obviously, Miami, Georgia Tech earlier in the day. You didn't get the passing numbers because we saw Georgia Tech's quarterback just wasn't able to throw the ball down the field. But there was just the one that disappointed us, obviously, was the Army North Texas game. Great numbers still from Bryson Daly, but everybody else kind of let us down. So that wasn't a great game stack. And we mentioned it was going to be hard to really get in game stacks last week. How did you do besides that?
I did pretty well. I had a lineup that was in contention late. It had Sanders, Hunter, and Wester. So I was watching the last game like, all right, I got a shot. But, this Colorado team is like, we still think of them as this terrible defense that like this really explosive offense. That's really not who they are anymore. They're kind of a legit team. They're still a better offensive team than defensive, but like they're a pretty good defense and they're they can move the ball in offense, but they're not like the super most explosive. So you got to adjust accordingly. They ended up having a decent game. It just wasn't quite enough to get me over the top.
No, I agree. And one of the surprising ones, I mean, last week, the best quarterback, and we'll talk about him coming into this week, was Quinn Ewers. And it was just a game environment that we said that it was too one-sided with a 21.5-point spread. But Texas said, it's Florida. I don't care. I'm going to keep going at him. So we did see that, and I'm sure we'll get into him later. And then one of the surprising ones was Kyle Robichaud out of BC. At 4,100, he really popped last week. Maybe it's a change in the guard, and we have BC back on the slate this week. So a lot of good stuff to talk about, but we can get right into it now.
All right, let's break it down.
Warren is shouting out for the Gadsden, and we did talk about him last week. That was huge. Great call. He was the second best receiver behind Jalen Noel, under 2%. Yeah, great. I'm glad that worked out.
Yeah, I mean, like we said, Gadsden's an NFL player. So, he had been hurt, so they hadn't been using him as much. That was a prime week when they back. And, I'm not going to be shy with him again this week. So
I know, and he was due. He was due. That was our big point. Like, he had – and Syracuse had moved the ball around to all other receivers. He's their guy. So I agree.
Exactly. All right, today, we the first game on the slate, we got Tulane and Navy. I like Mekhi Hughes the most here. The only thing with Mekhi Hughes to be aware of is he's going to be very highly owned. I think everyone likes, Mekhi Hughes and the way his usage. So, but he's in a great spot. This is not a very good Navy defense. They're going to give him the ball as many times as they can. Mekhi Hughes will be a staple in my running backs. The other name to mention here is Mario Williams. He's the number one receiver here for Tulane. He's a deep ball guy. At only 3,900, he's clearly underpriced. He's not a lock to get there because he's a deep ball guy, so this game can get out of hand and they can stop throwing. But at 3,900, if you're looking for a salary saver receiver, Mario Williams should absolutely be on your radar.
Yeah, those are the two big names for me. I'm with you. Mekhi Hughes is right up there in the top 5 of my running backs. I mean, I go back to the Notre Dame game when Navy faced Notre Dame. They let up 265 combined rushing yards. So they are a team that will let up a lot on the ground. The problem with Navy, similar to what we saw Army last week in the 14-3 slugfest against North Texas, is it's a very slower paced game. So I don't think we can get in a true game environment here. But I do like Hughes a lot, and I'm with you. Mario Williams, I think you got to separate them. That's just my point here. I think you got, you might be getting 7-8 possessions. You're not going to see a lot of chances for both to go off. Possible. Don't get me wrong. The salaries are right. But if anything, I'd probably separate them. But Mario Williams, you're right. 3 straight double-digit weeks at 3,900 is a great salary saver.
Right. There you have it. You mentioned Ewers at the start of the show. We had 5 touchdowns last week.
Yeah.
It's interesting with Ewers this week. They have been pricing him in the mid 9K range. They've now dropped him to 8,700, and it feels like they're dropping his price at a time where he's peaking. So it feels like a time where might be a time to go to him. And the other thing about this Texas team is they haven't really committed to a running back. It's been a mix. There's a committee here. I think that just means they throw more at the end of the day. Where early on in the year or maybe last year, they'd commit to one guy, they get him going, they give him 25 carries. That's just not this team. And I think that gives Ewers upside to get 4 or 5 touchdowns, which in reality he will need to hit that price tag at 8,700. But I think he can certainly get there against an Arkansas Razorbacks defense that isn't great, and they're especially worse against the pass. You can beat them through the air. They're a little bit tougher against run. So Ewers I like. If I were to go to this running game, I actually go with Gibson. He's a freshman. He's started to get the lion's share of the carries last week. I think that, shades more and more his direction as the cheapest one as well. Gibson's the play. Obviously comes with a lot of risk, but Gibson would be the choice for me in this Texas backfield. And then on the receiving end, the best player is Bond, and I have no problem playing Bond. But where I'm going to be different today is I'm going to play more DeAndre Moore. He's the slot receiver. This Arkansas team has struggled against the slot. I think that gives him an opportunity at only 3,800 to have a big day. And you'll notice the targets have been going up for more recently, so they've been getting him more and more involved. And, of course, the obvious play here, which will be pretty chalky, is Gunnar Helm, who has been one of their best receivers. He's a tight end. 3,100 is a clear underprice. It'll come with some ownership, but as involved as he's been at 3,100, it's a great salary saver.
Yeah, you hit most of it on the head. I'm going to add into that. I'm going with Matthew Golden as my preferred choice in the Texas passing game. Last week, he did catch 3 balls and was able to take 2 to the house. 3,400, he's a big play threat, we'll call it. So they do spread the ball out. Like Joel said, the running back situation is a very confusing one. Jaden Blue, 5 carries. Quintradian, I loved last week. Wisner, 4 carries, still got one in from the house. Like he caught one and took one deep. So while they're in play, their salaries are now on the likes of a 15-plus touch guy, and they're getting 5 or 6. So I'm not sure I can play either of those guys this week. If I was going to play one, I'd lean a little more Blue just because he had 4 for 60 last week. So they're starting to see him. His issue earlier in the year was fumbling. And now that they're getting around that, I think they need him to be that spark if they want to win this thing. So I think we might see more of him. But Joel, to your point, the cheapest running back in the room might be the best one to use. But again, Quinn Ewers my favorite. I think it's safe you could even not pair him up and you'd be fine because they spread the ball around so much. So I like Ewers. And on the other side, I don't like much from Arkansas. Texas just has a really good pass defense. We've talked in the past about, Jackson is a great running back, but it's hard against teams like Texas. Green, can get you some good points at quarterback. But at these prices, I'm probably fading most of Arkansas.
I'm with you on that. All right, here we go. Like I was saying before, Utah, Colorado. This Colorado team is good, and they have a shot to make the playoff. But like I said, this isn't the Colorado game script that we got accustomed to last year. Shador at 10K, I wouldn't play. He's just too expensive. He has to be so good. He doesn't run, right? If he ran, maybe, but he's unlikely to get a ton rushing on top of it at 10K. I just think you can spend your salary better, especially against a tough Utah defense. Honestly, I think this is going to be an exciting game to watch. I'm actually not too interested from a fantasy side on this game. Some people will be interested in Bernard at 7,100. I would rather go with Hughes or some of the other guys in that range. So for me, I'm probably a fade on this game.
Yeah, I will play some Travis Hunter. It's just outside of a few other names that will say Travis gets one of the highest target shares across the nation. We did see, I think it was Horn went down last week. So be careful with Shepard, in my opinion. Shepard played a lot more than he probably should have and normally does. So his numbers went up last week because of the injury to Horn. Horn looks healthy again. Wester's always a guy that I think is in play. But what I would do with the Colorado side this week is because of Utah's defense, and we saw them play a really good game against BYU last week. I mean, to the point they should have won that game. I probably won't go heavy stack on Colorado. I'll pick my 1s and 2s, and I still think there's value. If we can pay down in some other areas, I'll go with Hunter. I'm with you. I'm off Sanders. I just think I can name about 6 other quarterbacks from 8,000 to 9,000 that I like.
I'm with you on that. Well, let's find them.
Here's one.
There we go. We'll go to Clemson, Pittsburgh. I'm sure you're talking about Cade Klubnik, who's been very good. This Pittsburgh pass defense, leaves a lot to be desired. The issue on the Pittsburgh side is like they're way overpriced. They're still pricing them like they were playing early in the year against worse teams. It's hard to justify Desmond Reed at 9,600. I like the guy. If they priced him in the 6K range, I would be playing him. But at 9K, he's just not that guy right now. So he's a little priced too high. If I'm going to be playing this game, it's going to be the Clemson side. Klubnik's in play at 8,600. Maffa's definitely in play. He's one of the better running back plays at 7,300. I would prefer Maffa even to Bernard on Utah. But my favorite play here, that I think the guy that's going to be sneaky that I want to target is Jake Brittingsule, the tight end at Clemson. Mm-hmm. He's a NFL level tight end. They feature him, and this Pitts team has been beat by tight ends a few times this year. So I think it's a good spot for Brittingsule to have another big day. Yeah,
it looks like Warren's chiming in that Holstein will be out. Yeah, I still, even with Holstein out, I don't think I have. Well, I think that definitely waters down Pitt's passing offense. I'm stunned here. Yarnell was 200 less than Holstein, and then on the Clemson side, Vizina is a higher salary than Klubnik. Like,
that makes no sense. Who's making these salaries? Why do they do that?
Yeah, do they know something I don't? Because that's not happening. But Mumpfield was questionable coming in. I just think it does lower a lot of the projected values of Pitt. To stick on your side, I think Klubnik's a great play today. Clemson's still in mix to get into the college football playoffs. 2 losses doesn't eliminate you. So for that reason, I think, they got to play hard and they got to put up some impressive numbers. Seeing Miami lose last week at Georgia Tech probably, invigorating them a little more. I'm going to go back to the well a little bit. He disappointed us last week at a low salary, but I still think Bryant Wesco is their second best receiver. And I think DraftKings does too. Even with a 1-catch week, we move up from 3,100 to 3,800 in salary. So I would stick with Wesco. I'll also look at TJ Moore, who had the biggest week out of those secondary receivers last week, getting 13.8 fantasy points. He has moved down 3,300 to 3,200. So I do like the Clemson receiving game. Pitt is very bad against the pass. I'll look at Wesco more, separating them, playing them differently. But I do like them. And Joel, to your point, Brittingsule, one of my favorites each week in and week out. And I can't believe he's still only 4K.
I agree. I'm going to add one piece to that. There's a trend that I've seen and I really like your Wesco call, and it's this. I've seen that typically a guy who's a cheap chalk that everyone plays and doesn't hit, everyone just goes off of. And it's like there's a reason people liked him. Last week, Wesco disappointed. He was a cheap chalk. I think he comes back this week and plays well at a much lower ownership because he disappointed last week. He's not completely gone. There's a reason they targeted him 12 times 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
He's going to be involved in this offense. And it's like the perfect time for DFS to go after him because now you'll get the suppressed ownership and he actually might be able to hit again as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I probably played a little too much of him last week because of his salary at 3,100. This week, I'm not going to fade away. I agree. I've seen it a lot too.
All right. All right, we'll head to the 3 o'clock. There's a heavier set of afternoon games today to go into. First one is a good game environment to target. Syracuse, Cal. Both teams are not great on defense. They both have, pretty good passing offenses. Neither one of them I would say is a smash play, but both are in play. Both are definitely teams that I would consider. Starting on the Syracuse side, 9,300 from McCord's a little high, but he can get you there against this pretty bad Cal pass defense. So I don't love the price, but if you love the Syracuse offense in this spot, I wouldn't shy away from it. I think you can pay up for McCord in this spot. I don't love the running game, but I will be targeting these receivers. Jackson Meeks is the preferred receiver. He's had a few games where he's had double-digit targets, double-digit catches. He's the one I think has the most upside. But, of course, our guy, the tight end, Aranda Gadsden, he's an NFL talent, 5,400. He's still underpriced. He can go for 100 yards and a score. So Gadsden will definitely be a core player in my lineups. On the other side of the ball, I do want to put out Jack Endries. He's the tight end for Cal. He's been pretty much their best receiver this year. At 4,700, he's a value play that you can consider. Other than that, I won't be overly invested in this game.
Yeah, I mean, this one's interesting. I mean, we're sitting here with the third highest total on the board at 57.5, only a couple points off one of the bigger games of the slate. The last time we saw Cal, they played a very porous Wake Forest defense. And I say that very nicely, as Wake Forest ranks 128th in passing out of 133 teams. So, and Mendoza put up 36.5. That was on a Friday night. So some people probably forget about Cal a little bit because you haven't seen them much on a Saturday slate of late. So I think there is some value in Mendoza today at a very good price, 7,200. He's had 2 straight games of 36 plus points, 2 straight. And Syracuse isn't one of those teams that is very good at stopping quarterbacks, ranking 141st against them. So I like Mendoza. It's going to take a lot, but I do think Jaden Ott's back. And it is tricky at 7K. You got to trust this, but it's taken some time with him coming back from injury to take over the running back room. We saw 14 carries last week, only 8.2 points. So you're probably like, oh, wait, he's not back. But again, Wake Forest, 128, 133rd in pass. That's where you beat them. Today, you can beat Syracuse on the ground. They allow over 150 yards a game rushing. I do like Jaden Ott today. And then lastly, back to your Syracuse stories. Like them all, but LaQuint Allen is probably my favorite of all of them. He's had 8 touchdowns in the past 4 or 5 games. He put up 2 monster games in a row, 5 touchdowns in the last 2 games. He's back, just like Gadsden's back. So LaQuint Allen is, he's expensive. So we're going to have to figure out ways to fit other people. But I like LaQuint Allen a lot.
All right, there you have it. LSU, Florida. This game's interesting because of pricing. There's some spots where you can get some intriguing plays at a really good side. I'm going to start with Florida. With Lagway playing quarterback, they want to run the ball. They want to run the ball a lot. And their running backs are extremely affordable. Jordan Bow is going to get you 15 to 20 carries at 3,500. We saw him have 5 rushing touchdowns, 2 or 3 weeks ago. So at 3,500, this is a crazy low price for a guy who's going to get a lot of carries in this game. He does have downside, so it's not like you'll have to lock him in. But if you're looking for
looks like Joel could have froze up here. We'll keep the train rolling because I like where he was headed with some of Florida's rushing attack there. Obviously, we talked about Bow has been 12 carries, 22 carries, 17 carries, 19 carries at 3,500 against. Did anybody get to see the LSU-Alabama game last week? I did. And Jaden Milroe had 4 touchdowns against LSU running the ball. So, Joel, you're back. I definitely love the Bow call. I think he's going to be one of our favorites on the target. LSU very bad against the rush. I was talking about Milroe. I know it's different quarterback to running back, but they're bad against running backs. 162nd against running backs. On the LSU side, one of the names I really love, and by the way, I think Grant Nussmeier stinks, and I can't believe he's a first-round rated quarterback. But the other side, I like Mason Taylor, their tight end. I think he's been really solid at 3,500, a good value player, consistently getting 3+ catches a game. I talked about last week with some of the tight ends, and I talked about Miami's tight end last week. You get one in the end zone, you're gold here. So I like Mason Taylor a lot. Warren's asking, are we worried if Johnson plays? He is questionable. I mean, sure, if he plays, this probably changes my 3,500. I love, but I'll still play a little Bow. I think he's earned their trust. How about you, Joel?
I'm with you on that. I'm going to play Bow. It will lower my exposure maybe a little bit if Johnson plays. I think Johnson playing will do it. I think he might, but did you lose me again?
Yeah, but you're back. You're good.
All right. So, yeah, I think Bow's in play either way. Johnson playing maybe will scare me off of Jackson, but but I think Bow's going to be in play at
Yeah,
35.
I wouldn't play them both, right? Like, but I would play running back against LSU. So, I mean, it's interesting. If Johnson plays, save yourself a little salary there. They're only off by 800 or so. And because Johnson's been pretty gold every week except against A&M. So, yeah, I just play some running backs against LSU, whether it's Johnson or Bow, and don't play both.
There you have it. All right. BC SMU, this is a spot where people are going to gravitate toward. Brashard Smith is priced up at 8,800. You know, he's been great. He's been finding the end zone. At 8,800, I just think there's some better plays at a lower price. You know, this is not me telling you don't play Brashard Smith. It's a great spot for him, and I would, reckon he's a great play. But it's just, if that's what you want your highest salaried guy to be, that's what you're going to have. You're going to have to stomach that play. For the most part in this game, though, they really spread the ball receiver-wise. So I'm not really targeting any of these receivers just because who knows who's going to get the ball. It's too spread out on the SMU side. For BC, it's the same. I think they have 2 to 3 running backs that might play. They don't really have a go-to receiver. So for that standpoint, it could be a good game. It's just hard to pick which guy to target. So I'm not going to be overly exposed here.
Yeah, unfortunately, Castellanos getting hurt has forced BC into a situation where we're using a very big unknown in Grayson James. He's got a few throws last week, but they weren't really dynamic in the passing game anyway. So again, if you heard the opening of the show, the one guy that really popped last week, and now we have to believe is the number one running back in the BC backfield is Kai Robichaud with 28 carries last week, getting 198 yards. He was huge. And I think with a backup quarterback, or let's say second string quarterback, college football terms, I think they're going to have to lean on Robichaud. SMU is decent. They got a decent defense. This isn't the Mustangs of a few years ago, but I like Robichaud a lot today. 5,100, I think, is still a very good price for him, especially if we're going to see 20-plus carries. Joel, I'm with you on the passing game. I wish Russell Maryland was still there because he's just a guy we'd like to plug in and play, but he's out. So the one guy I'm looking at, if I play anything, is probably Roderick Daniels Jr. 3 straight games, 2+ catches, but he's turned those into touchdowns in the past couple of weeks too. So at 3,900, I see some value there. And BC's not very good against the pass. So Keyshawn Smith, another at 3,500 maybe, but again, these are salary savers. Don't build your lineups around them. But if you have some room, we've mentioned some 3,500s. We mentioned Matthew Golden at 34, Wesco at 38. They all kind of fall in this lump. If got a little bit of salary, I might swing on one SMU receiver.
All right. There you have that. I am excited to talk about Louisville and Stanford. Louisville's in a great spot here. Stanford defense is bad. They're heading for the West Coast. I think they're going to score a ton of points. And the good thing about Louisville is it's very targeted. They really feature 2 guys. So you know who to go to. It's the running back who has been fantastic. Isaac Brown, 6,700, underpriced for me. My favorite, if not my second favorite running back on the day in this spot. Love Isaac Brown. We'll have a ton of exposure to him. I also love Ja'Cory Brooks. This is a really bad Stanford pass defense who gets beat deep often. Ja'Cory Brooks is one of the best deep receivers in the country. It just seems like a really great spot for Brooks to have a big day. 7,700. I'm happy to pay up and get Brooks in my lineup. And I will play both Brooks and Isaac Brown in lineups. You can play both Brooks and Isaac Brown with or without Show. So if you want to play Show as a salary, 7,900 under 8K, you can do so. I can play both Brown and Brooks without Show too. But I think both these guys are in a great spot today and are going to put up a ton of points.
Yeah, Stanford's 121st out of 133 D1 teams against the pass, allowing 268 per game. It's an absolute go spot for Louisville. I'm with you. And the beauty of all this, we talk Brooks, we talk Brown. I think they're fairly priced too for guys that really could put up in the 30s. So I love this spot. I do like Chris Bell too. He's their second best receiver. Chris Bell is kind of like a home run hitter in baseball. For us in Philly, our Kyle Schwarber, because he's going to have a good game and he's going to have an absolutely awful game. And today in Stanford at 3,500, I kind of like him. I think he will pop he's consistently getting 2 or 3 catches a game. So now if we can get it to 4 or 5 versus a horrible pass defense, we could really see this 3,500 turn into 4 or 5x value. So keep an eye on Chris Bell. And on the other side, my second favorite receiver, IMR or Imanor or however you want to say it, Eric, but or Eli, they're gonna have to pass. And he sees 32% of the target shares for Stanford, the highest in the nation. He's an NFL type receiver. He's been big. He's had some 11 catch games. Louisville's not the best against the pass as well. You can get there 5,200, I think, on a team that is 21-point underdogs and going to have to pass. I think it is a great spot for the Stanford receiver here. So that's about all I'll go with Stanford. And one other point, Stanford Steve, the ESPN personality, is picking Louisville to win this big. So, I think we're going to see big numbers from Louisville. Someone who knows Stanford very well also thinks Louisville will pop today.
I actually have a question for you. A decision I've been weighing this morning, and I wonder where you would lean. I've been going back and forth between Iomanor and Gadsden in a lineup where I am playing a lot of Louisville players. Would you go with Gadsden or Iomanor?
Iomanor. I'm feeling the run back as Warren says a little bit here, but also there's just more of a risk with Syracuse to give the ball to some of the other players like Meeks and stuff. I love Gadsden, don't get me wrong, but I like the run back. I do.
I like it. All right, there you have it. Next game up here, we got this Virginia-Notre Dame game. Notre Dame's interesting. They're a one-man show. It's all Riley Leonard. He's the whole offense. He's the running game. He's the passing game. At 9,500, he's like, his floor is almost 25 points and his ceiling's 35, right? It's like he's in this like safe space where he's going to get you around 30 points every week. This Virginia defense is not great. They've shown some improvement recently, but they're not good. And I feel like this is another spot where Leonard will safely get you close to his 30 that he's been getting you every week. I don't play anyone else on Notre Dame. They just, it's a one-man show for me. I don't even consider stacking him with anyone. And the other side of the coin, this Notre Dame defense, while it's not the powerhouse they've been in the past, they're still pretty good. This isn't an explosive Virginia offense, so I'm out on Virginia.
It's tough. I mean, I'm all in on Leonard. I'm with you. It's just been a total change in, philosophy and way to play since their early loss to Eastern Illinois or Northern Illinois. I mean, the games are just amazing. 35, 38, 25, 30, 24, 29, 31. And before that, he only averaged 13. I just named all these games. Not one was less than 24. So it's just been a total change, and it's not going to stop today. Notre Dame likely has to win out and stay with one loss to make the college football playoffs. I know that sounds a little crazy, but just based upon their independence, the toughness of the SEC, I think teams will take 3-loss SEC teams over a 2-loss Notre Dame. So that's why I think they got to stick with one loss and they got to win impressively. I think they'll do that today. Riley Leonard, one of my favorite quarterbacks. Joe, I will say this. Of the teams I've mentioned so far, Stanford being terrible against the pass, Pitt, the worst team on the whole slate today is Virginia. So it is. I know Notre Dame doesn't pass a lot, but one of the guys I always love, and he hasn't really thrived this year, is Greathouse. He's a big, tall, deep threat. I think only one TD is a little disappointing, but I might give a little sprinkle to another $33,000 receiver on the Notre Dame side. And if I did, I'd lean Greathouse. Virginia's so bad against the pass, averaging 275 per week. So you can really expose them on that side of the field.
Would you play Greathouse without Leonard or only as a stack?
No, without. I would. Yeah, because what? I mean, he's got to get 2-3 catches and a touchdown, and that doesn't make Riley Leonard any better. But that's all he has to do to really make his value, right?
That's true. Yeah, he's cheap enough. That's the point. All right. Penn State and Purdue. Purdue is really bad. Really bad. And Penn State is good on defense. So it's an easy to just fade Purdue on offense because I don't think they're going to score a lot of points against Penn State. Penn State's going to score a lot of points. It's a matter of who's going to score them. Pick your poison. It seems like the most popular option is going to be Allen because Singleton had that question mark. But Singleton practiced all week. It looks like he's going to play. So I do think they're going to split carries. At 3,900, Allen is cheap enough against a Purdue defense that's really, really bad. I think they're going to run all over them. So there's certainly plenty of upside here. Other people will be looking at the passing game. I mean, to Dave's point, there's a lot of value receivers. Even Harrison Wallace at 3,600 is someone you can consider in a fantastic matchup. Penn State's best player is their tight end, Tyler Warren. I mean, they've certainly priced him up here. But again, they put him in as a wildcat quarterback. He can get you points in a variety of ways. If you want to play Warren, he's certainly in play. But my favorite play in this spot would be Allen.
Yeah, it's Allen. I agree with you. Even if Singleton's fine, 4,900's almost like ridiculous for, a team that's that bad against the run. So welcome to my TED Talk. As I've talked about the bad pass defenses, the worst one on the slate today is Purdue, allowing 199.9 yards of rushing per game. That's enough to go around between Singleton, Warren, and Allen. I think Allen might be the closer in this one, the cleanup guy. So you could get a lot of, good stats later in the game as well, especially with the questionable status on Singleton. Joel, I mean, if the guy's not your 30-point favorite against Purdue, do you really need him? And if you do, how long do you need him for? So I think for all those reasons, I love Allen a lot. But then the 4,900 price tag is beautiful. I'm with you on Warren because 7,200 is a lot. Don't get me wrong. But they got nobody else to pass to because Drew Aller's not very good. I watch a lot of Penn State games, and Warren in the last few weeks, 2 carries, 3 carries, 3 carries. So to your point, down near the end zone, they will use him, and he'll steal a running touchdown from either the quarterback or one of the running backs. So it's Allen and Warren for me. I think both are in play. I don't think I stack, but I could because Purdue could easily let up 35 to 38. Last week, I talked about it. Will Howard's one of my plays with Jeremiah Smith. Even though it could get away, they put up enough points to really get us in the cash. So I think Penn State has enough playing time against Purdue to get you in the cash if you played them both together. And
don't forget, Dave, Tyler's actually watching the show. He's been commenting the whole time. So
yeah, that's him. Yes, love it.
All right. We go to the 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock should be fun as well. Baylor and West Virginia. This is a spot I like a lot. 2 of my favorite quarterbacks are in this game. I think Sawyer Robertson has looked good this year. They've priced him up at, say, 8,700, but he's the type of quarterback we look for. A good matchup against a weak West Virginia defense. He runs the ball. He throws the ball. I like Sawyer Robertson a lot in this spot. And I also like Garrett Green. Garrett Green's coming back from injury. A fully healthy Garrett Green. We know what he can do with his legs. The risk is he's coming in for injury. Maybe he won't run as much. But I'm willing to take that risk, especially in game stacks here with Robinson. I think this has the potential of being a shootout game. The 7,400, the price is certainly right. But there's plenty of other options to go to in this game. Bryson Washington got featured last week. They hit him the ball a ton of times. He scored. I don't remember exactly how much, but he had a huge day. So 4 touchdowns. So he'd be very much so involved. You can even play Washington with Robinson. But Josh Cameron will be my favorite pass catcher here. We've seen him have a few big games. And I think Cameron will be in another spot today. Will be in a good matchup for him to have potentially another big game. The other receiving option I like is Hal Presley, who's had a few games where he's been the number 1 guy at 3,400. There's plenty of value plays to find, but especially if I'm playing Robinson, I'm going to want to stack him with at least one of these guys.
Yeah, I agree with all those. I will say this. I have 3 stars next to Bryson Washington. At 6,400, I feel like he's probably my number 1 owned running back on the slate. I just think it's a great spot. Like you said last week, I'm not just going off last week, but 50 fantasy points is amazing. And you're not going to replicate 4 rushing touchdowns. It's not going to happen. But at 6,400, I need 25 or 28, which is very attainable to really put us in a lineup that gets us 200 plus points. So I like Bryson Washington a lot. I'm with you. All the other plays, I think this is a great game stack environment here. 59.5, the highest total on the board. Yeah, and to Warren, I do hate trusting the Baylor wide receivers. You know what I hate trusting too? The West Virginia running backs. But it has seemed like we are moving into a full Jaheim White is the lead guy position. CJ Donaldson only got 4 carries last week. So if I did take something on the West Virginia side outside of Green, I think White's in play for me today, that 5,000, 5,100 tag. I just can't believe CJ Donaldson has fallen to earth this fast because I thought he was up and coming running back, but I guess the Mountaineers don't feel that way anymore.
Yeah, I think he's fallen out of favor, unfortunately. But to your point, Jaheim White at 4,700 is affordable. So I think as a value running back, he would certainly be in play in this game. As this Baylor run defense is not good. And they're going to score points. It's a matter of finding who on this West Virginia side is going to get them there. All right, the last game of the slate here, USC Nebraska. This game is intriguing. I think a lot of people are looking at Nebraska. They're going to let Dana Holgorsen call plays. It's going to look a little different on offense. They're probably going to throw more, which has people intrigued by Raiola. At 5,500, he's certainly cheap enough to get you there, especially if they have more of a passing offense this week. So Raiola's in play, but I think really where I'm most interested is in the receiver side. These receivers are cheap. The guy who's been really coming on recently is Ja'Cory Barney Jr., who's had a ton of targets. At only 3,600, he's another value receiver that is certainly in play against a USC defense that has not been good. This USC defense is beatable. I think we saw Rutgers receiver go absolutely off on them 2 weeks ago, and this guy, is not very good. So I think one of these guys has the potential to break the slate on the Nebraska side. And then the other side of the ball, USC is changing the quarterback. They're going to go with Maeva. I probably think that will benefit this offense. I think they'll probably look a little bit better. I prefer to stick to the passing game on this side, as Nebraska's pretty tough against the run. So Mekhi Lemon's come on as their best receiver. At only $5K, he's affordable. He's getting a ton of targets. Lemon would be the guy I'm targeting on the USC side.
Yeah. Maeva. I mean, the name has crept up by an ex UNLV guy, I think. So he has had experience. It's not one of those situations where I'm like in BC, where I feel like they're going to really want to lean on the running game because, they want to ease the quarterback in. He can play. So Maeva, to Warren's point too, is very interesting. I do think he is 7,500. I think it's a fair price for someone that I think will rip it up. I mean, they're putting him in to throw. I mean, it's just Miller Moss, they just didn't get enough volume in that game. I think Woody Marks is still in play. I know Nebraska's defense is tough against the run. I know they rank high against running backs, but Marks is like one of those special players that just gets a ton of volume, not only in the run game, but in the passing game. Last week, 7 receptions. Last few weeks, 16 receptions the last 3 weeks. On the year, 37. So, I mean, that's where I think Marks' value might pop with us. So at 8,500, I'm not scared. Now, I got to bounce some things out, but I do think Marks is still in play. So those are my points on the USC side. I like where you're sitting. I think Barney Jr. is one of my favorites on Nebraska side. And this game has sneaky potential. It's 51 total points, which in a Nebraska game seems high. But I think the books are telling us something. I think there's going to be points in this game.
All right. I love it. Fun slate today. And what I love most about it is a lot of the fun action that we like is in the afternoon.
Yes.
So we'll get in there, watching our lineups creep up the leaderboards as the games go on. Before we get you out of here today, we do have our Underdog pick'em plays that we'll give out for you. We talk to the players we like. We'll find these player props that we want to go over or under on and bet them. Dave, we'll start with you. Heading over to Underdog, which player props?
I'm going right to Mekhi Hughes. Tulane, 118 yards rushing. I think it's there. It's there to be had today. Again, mentioned the game against Notre Dame when Navy let up almost 300 rushing yards. Jeremiah Love had a big game that day. Mensa doesn't run the ball a ton. This is Hughes, and this is his game. So I feel like 118 is a lot, but I think it's very attainable today.
Yeah, with the volume he gets, I like Hughes there as well. For me, one of my favorite plays I mentioned on the show is Zach Brown. This Louisville running back has been a star in the making. They are now featuring him in this offense. They over-under him for 94.5. I think it's a really bad Stanford defense. While you can beat Stanford through the air, I think this game gets out of hand, and they end up running the ball on them for most of the game at 94.5. I love Brown over 94.5 rushing yards.
Yeah, I like it a lot too. He's been great this year, and this one gets tricky here because they're saying first half. I'm going to do it. I'm going to say Florida. We're going to go Jaden Ball over 11.25 fantasy points. There's that risk, obviously. We said of Johnson coming in there. But even if he does, 11 sounds easy if he's the workhorse. 11, you can still get there with sharing some carries. So I'll take his 11.25 fantasy points over the total for Jaden Ball today, Florida running back.
I would agree with that one. As long as he gets in the end zone, he will certainly get you there. I'm going to go back to my team. I just think they're in a great spot. We're going back to Louisville. Like I said, two of my favorite plays are the two Louisville playmakers. They have a targeted usage, where these are the two guys that get the ball to. Ja'Cory Brooks, the receiver, 85.5 receiving yards. I'm going to go over here as well. Stanford is terrible guarding the pass. He only needs to catch a couple deep balls, and he will get you there. So my only risk with Brooks is if this game gets out of hand quickly and they stop throwing the ball, which is possible. But as long as the game is close for at least through the first half, I think he easily passes 85.5 receiving yards today.
Yeah, he really should. One of the few true number one receivers in the nation that really gets that consistent high volume. So I'm with you there, Joel. Those are my two picks. One thing I will throw out there tonight, was able to post in Discord last night and hit on Washington covering the spread over UCLA. A game I have my eye on is Arizona State at Kansas State. I like the Sun Devils. They're building something down there. +8 you can get on a lot of tickets right now. K-State was a team that I had high hopes on to start the season. But quite frankly, they've disappointed me. I don't think Avery Johnson has made the I'd say Avery Johnson. What's his last name again? Why did I say that? Help me out.
Kansas State's quarterback?
Yeah. I said Avery Johnson, the old basketball player.
It is Avery Johnson.
Yeah, it is Avery Johnson. Sorry, I was remembering the Spurs point guard, the preacher. But yeah, Avery, he just hasn't made the huge steps. Scatterbo's back and healthy. I like Arizona State +8 tonight and potentially pull out an outright.
All right, Arizona State with the outright. I like Arizona State. I actually think this Kansas State team is a little bit overrated.
Yeah.
Johnson hasn't really come to be the quarterback that he was projected to be as a recruit. He's still pretty good, but they're not great receivers. I think you're right. This is a spot where Arizona State, could maybe make some noise. They're a tougher defense than people realize. So there's an interesting one there. That's a wrap for today. Good luck. Share those green screens. Let us know how you do. We'd love to see it. We'll come back next week, and we will do it again. Certainly a fun slate. A lot of fun to break down for DFS as there's not a ton of concentrated ownership. So if you pick right, you can have a great day. Good luck. And Dave, any lasting parting words?
No, I love it, Joel. I think there's 12 games and there's players in each game. We're not really totally fading a game this week. And I don't think you're really going to game stack of 4 maybe, but not much more. So it's very possible we're going to see maybe one off in every game. You could see 9 different players from different games on a winning slate today. So good luck. A lot of good things to choose from. Like Joel said, we hit on a lot of under 4K guys too. So it can really help you spend up on your quarterback say, which I think is going to be important.
There you have it. Good luck today and see you next week.